We're making the little pool again, so just yeah, that'll do.
Sometimes the red gets fuzzy in there.
Right, can everyone see? Can you guys see at the back? Okay, so just a quick look at how the table's set up. So again, we've got our phone books to keep our individual workspace nice and clean. We've got crayons out because we've got the two processes. Now obviously if you were just doing ink, you wouldn't have the crayons, and if we were doing just crayons, you wouldn't have the ink, but we got here a 2-for-1 deal. So we've got this set up for 5 people. Again, we're working with the 3 primary colours. Why are they primary?
Because they mix and make.
Yep, can't make them, mix them together, you make every other colour, darken them by adding, lighten them by adding. Okay, so there you go, that's we're leading into the painting that we're doing. Okay, so we've got these set up with the 3 primaries, and then newsprint. So the only paper we're using today is newsprint because it's nice and thin. And what we're going to do, and I'm going to get you to give me a hand, is we're going to wrap an envelope around the cardboard block. So 2 hands are better than 1. So if you come over here, so what we're going to do is turn it over, keep it in the middle because obviously we need that centimetre. Now if you start folding up that side, nice and sharp. So give it a push with your fingers. And then if you hold that side, yeah, you just keep your fingers there, and then I'll hold it while you do the top. You want it as tight as possible. So even for children, this is actually quite hard. And if they have a problem, then because we've got to flip it over, thank you, that'll do. You can put a little bit of sellotape on it. I prefer not to because it can rip the paper. So we've made a nice little tight envelope around our card block. Get a nice clean page. Once you've turned it over, rub with your finger to get a nice sharp edge. That stops it pinging off as well. Okay, now we'll do the crayon rubbings first. So the idea with the crayons, and if you get children just to do this themselves, they'll immediately just use the top of the crayon. Now what that's going to do is actually cause a lot of line to happen. We don't want line, we want the colour. So rather than using the top end, we're just going to turn them on the side. So you'll find some crayons in there that have got like a flat edge. That's because they've been used. And all we're going to do, and I'll start with the red, is we're going to use the crayon side on and in a circular motion, not pressing hard. See, look, they've got very little weight on that. Let the crayon do the work, circular motion, and basically right over the card block. Now you can press a little bit harder, and if there's an area you don't get into, you can bevel the crayon on its side. And in fact, one of the things I want you to do before you take it off is with one of the crayons, turn it side on and rub it once right around all 4 sides. That's going to give us a nice sharp edge. So when we take it off, we can see it. So for your single colour, work with a darker colour. This is what we learned with the mono printing about the yellow still stands. For single colour images, you need to have contrast with the paper. This paper's a bit duller. It's got that sort of newsprinty colour. So you can work it with one colour. And then if you want to, you just work over the top with another. Now you can be a bit selective about where you put the colour. So if I decided I wanted in these designs to look at the sort of leaves in different colours, I can. But it's a crayon, so you can only get the control that you can with the crayon. But it is actually possible. And you do need to take your time to build it up sort of slowly. So then I put that one over onto here. And then when you're doing your multi, this is where you've got to be quite careful. For one of the multicolours, because I want you to do a couple of multicolours if you can, try going over with black last. Now bear in mind, whenever you put black, anything, black paint, whatever, be sparing. So very lightly, with the last rub I do, and I'm hardly pressing, I'm just letting the crayon sort of And I do half of it so you can see the difference that the black does. So can you see the difference, what happens with the black? It just sort of gives a bit of sort of zing to it, sort of sharpen. So then when I'm finished, good to go. So with the pencils on the table, I would immediately write 1 in a line because I don't know how many I'm going to do. I'll put my title here, my signature, and 15. That can then be trimmed later. And I would take a centimetre, leave a centimetre, a centimetre, a centimetre, and a wee bit more down the bottom. So that's the first process. Now the beauty with this process is there's no drying. So you can just put these on your chair because you need to be standing up for these processes. Please do not sit down for these. Tempting as it is, you're all young, it's good for you anyway. Put your chairs away. Alright, stand up, get your back stretched. So that's the first one. Second process, need my helper again. Right, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We'll be good at this now. So make an envelope again. Do our sides. I'll do the bottom and you do the top. The tighter the better. Right, I'll hold that. You do the top. Brilliant. Flip it over. I've got a bit of crayon on that, so I'll go on to Canterbury Map 6. Give it a rub to make sure it's on nice and tight. So for the dry roller process, we're basically going to do exactly the same thing, but instead of using crayon, we're using ink. So it's called dry roller for a reason. How much ink do you think needs to be on it?
Not a lot.
Right, pretty much dry. So how do I know? Roll it off. Far too much. You literally want to think there is no ink on your roller. Now, sometimes rollers get a bit old and ink can pull on the outside edges. If you find you get a lot of lines, bevel the roller and clean the edges off. Still too much ink. So the amount that you put in this middle, just put a smidgen out, like even less than a toothpaste amount today. Getting there now. So when you think it's pretty much empty. So what do we do? Whereas with the crayon we went in circles, with this we're moving from the outside in. Don't be tempted to do this, you'll get lines. So lifting and lightly, I should be able to do it with 2 fingers. And in fact, you can even turn the block. And that was even still probably too much ink. Now I'm not picking any more ink up. No more ink, I'm not going back for more. The amount I've got on here is actually plenty, if not a bit too much. But you do need to go from different angles for this one, because you've got different sort of heights and things. So if you find a bit, oh, I can't get into that, turn the roller and play with it to make sure that you pick up all of those surfaces. Now look, still no more ink, but the ink keeps coming. Err on the side of none rather than too much. If you want to do a bad one, I know you all do, put too much ink on and see what happens. Within about 30 seconds you can't see a thing, just covered in ink. So still haven't put any more ink on the roller. Just checking that I've got my surfaces showing. You will get the odd line depending on your design. If you've got big gaps, the roller will drop into it. You can only minimise it by not putting a lot of pressure on. So when you've done one colour, because we're using such little ink, in fact I'm even going to use that dry one here. Ooh, so see that what I mean about the outside edges? Mm-hmm. Can be a real trap, and it's a pain because once it's on there you can't get it off, so I just clean those off. You see why these phone books are so handy, can't you? Still got too much. It's looking good. Right. So then, so the less ink you've got on your roller, the more pressure you can put on to pick up the design. You see what's happening now? There, the colours are sort of blending. So I might as well do yellow too. You want to pass me a... I love these. They're sort of soft and furry. The next process we do is harsh, but these is just something very delicate about them. If I had to just do one process, this would be the one I'd do. But it's a little bit harder to control because you do need to have sort of control over the not having too much ink. Again, with one of your colours, bevel right round the outside edge so we get a nice sharp edge.
If you over-inked the lightest colour, could you use that as a filler almost?
What's the question?
If you put too much ink on with a lighter?
Yeah.
If I ended up with too much of the light, I could go back with the dark. I mean, the key, it all comes down to quantity.
No, I'm saying if you wanted to fill in the white, yellow.
No. This is now going to go on all your surfaces. See how it's going? See how it's sort of developing? Quite beautiful, eh? Right, so I'll put that one back. And then when you're good to go, open it up. And there's your dry roller print, which is very beautiful. I've kept the edges clean, which is important. I would put a different edition for this, so this would be one as well. And it will be touch dry in a couple of minutes. If you do one with too much ink, a good bad one, it won't be. It will take a bit longer. So put them up on those back shelves. But for these ones, it's actually okay also just to put your stool underneath and get them to sit on that. And they're touch dry. So that, in terms of no fuss in the classroom, it's hard to get much easier than this and to get a beautiful print from it. Next week it's chaos. We've got ink everywhere and they're wet and they take 3 days